good evening, good morning, welcome back to the Bundesliga Show, brought to you by Over the Bar, with your hosts, myself, Rory Petre, and Mark Broadhurst. Welcome back. It's been another very entertaining weekend of Bundesliga action, so please sit back and enjoy as me and Mark go through and analyse everything that's been going on this weekend. Obviously, if you do like the show and you've been sticking around and watching us for the last few weeks and you haven't clicked subscribed yet, please do. Yeah, so click that big red button and join the rest of our other subscribers over the bar so that you don't miss out on any shows, the Bundesliga show and indeed the League One show. So please do subscribe and do so if you're listening on an audio platform as well. As obviously we're back now with the full version of the Bundesliga show. We did a midweek version, a bonus version the other day. So it's back to Mark with Mark's mystery anagram. So we're back to usual this week. So over to Mark for a new anagram and to go over the previous one as well.
Yep, absolutely. So let's start by remembering the anagram from last Sunday. So as you can see on the bottom of your screen, it was wheat, them, pop. So wheat, them, pop. So possibly not the hardest one ever this week, but we did. The correct answer was indeed, it was Schalke's on-form American striker Matthew Hop. Yeah, but unfortunately he didn't score this week, which usually we have a tradition where whoever is the anagram for the week before usually has a good week, but this week he didn't score. So it proves that it doesn't always work. So let's have a look at this week's anagram now. So remember, guys, it's got to be something related to the Bundesliga. It has to be a player, a manager, or a club from the first division of the Bundesliga. So let's have a look at this week, week 18's Mark's mystery anagram. So let's have a little look. So as you can see on the bottom of your screen, it's 3 words this week. It's catchier shirt sin. Catchier shirt sin. So remember, guys, if you're listening on our YouTube channel, don't be afraid to comment. We'll give you a shout out if you get it correct. So don't be afraid to comment. Give it. Remember, also, you can interact with us in any way as well. It doesn't have to be with the correct anagram answer. It can be anything about your thoughts on the week's games, who you thought the hero and zero of the week was. We appreciate any interaction with you guys. Yeah, we had a few good comments this week. So, it's really great to see that you guys are starting to interact with us more and more. So, so remember, guys, if you are listening on our podcast, I'm just going to read it out to you slower just so you can write it down there. So I know we get a growing number of people on our podcast now, which is great. So let's so the first word is catchier, C-A-T-H-I-E-R. The second word is shirt, S-H-I-R-T, and the third word is sin, S-I-N. Catchier shirt sin is the Mark's mystery anagram for week 18. So so this week's fixtures were the same as back in September, in early September when we kicked off the Bundesliga season, which it does seem a long time ago in all honesty, at least here in Germany where we have a strict lockdown. We can barely even leave the house at the moment, to be honest with you. But the football has been good. It's been a really, really good weekend of football this week. So let's, just before we get into the main analysis, let's recap the 9 results for week 18. So as you can see on the bottom of your screen, we started with a Friday night thriller. 2 teams who played the third game in 6 days, ended in a 4-2 win for Borussia Mönchengladbach against struggling Dortmund. Edin Terzic doesn't seem to have been able to change the fortunes of the club. Then moving on to Saturday, we had on form, probably the form team of the whole league at the minute, got a 5-1 win, Frankfurt away in previously on form Bielefeld, who'd kept 3 clean sheets before this game. Then we had a big win for Augsburg against Union, which keeps them in mid-table. A good win in the battle of what looks like being a top 4 race for Wolfsburg away in Leverkusen. Yeah, Wolfsburg only lost 2 games all season in 18 now. Pretty impressive numbers. Then Freiburg continue their fantastic form. They completed the double over Stuttgart, backing up their 3-2 win in Stuttgart on the opening day of the season. And that is a derby as well. So they got the bragging rights there for this season. Mainz with the shock of the weekend, winning 3-2 against second place Leipzig. We'll discuss that one more a bit later. And then, Werder Bremen, they always seem to find a win when they need to, and they got a brilliant, probably one of their performances of the season, a 4-1 win in beleaguered Hertha Berlin, who also let go of Bruno Labbadia today. Actually, we film on the Sunday, and today the news broke that he has been relieved of his duties. So we'll have to see what happens there for the side that just continues slipping down the table. Then moving on to Sunday, we had a predictable 4-0 win for Bayern away against relegation-threatened Schalke. They're starting to slip further and further from safety. And then back-to-back 3-0 wins now for improving Hoffenheim. It's been a fantastic week for them and Sebastian Hoeneß. So, they can enjoy the show this week, having achieved back-to-back 3-0 wins, this time over FC Cologne. So that rounds up the scores for week 18. So let's have a look at the OTB's featured 4 now. So let's swiftly get into it. So there's no better place to start, really, is there, than the Friday night thriller between Borussia Mönchengladbach and Dortmund, as you can see, which ended in a 4-2 win for the home side. I mean, obviously, it was a topsy-turvy match. Obviously, Gladbach going ahead through Nico Elmedi after just 10 minutes. They already had a goal disallowed in the first 60 seconds, actually, of this game. Then the only man who seems to be playing for Dortmund this season, really, to be honest, Haaland bangs in a double, and it looks like he might just be able to breathe in life into Dortmund's season again. But then it just fell apart, didn't it, completely, getting back level just before half-time. Then the second half was a pretty one-sided affair, really, Rory.
Yeah, it was. It was a very good game of football to watch for a neutral's point of view. Gladbach did start the game very brightly, and as you mentioned, scored after about a minute and 30 seconds, but it was obviously chalked off because of VAR and a foul by Neuhaus in the build-up, which I think it just about was on Bellingham. Might have got away with one, to be fair. And then they did eventually get their deserved lead, obviously through Elvedi, who's been very, very good as it comes to the fore of late for his club, to get them 1-0 up. But then to Dortmund's credit, they did respond quite well to that and then did pile on the pressure, which did eventually tell Haaland, as you mentioned, Mark, got himself 2 goals, the first of which was a superb finish. Obviously a little clipping behind by Sancho, and Haaland's finish was basically the only space in the goal there was past Sommer to finish into. So that was very nice. And then again, some good play between Bellingham and Sancho in the area, quick feet, quick 1-2, and then they set up Haaland to swivel and spin to score his second goal. So that was a really nice goal as well, actually. But yeah, obviously from that point on, you obviously as a team you want to try and get into half time, 2-1 up, which obviously unfortunately didn't happen for Dortmund. It's a free kick banged in by Stindl. Berkey's failed to deal with it, bounces out, and Elvedi all of a sudden has got the goal scoring touch. Was there to follow up, the only person following up to make it 2-2, and from that point on, I think obviously Dortmund's heads dropped. Ben Sabani's goal was a nice little cut in and finish, actually, to make it 3-2, and then the returning Marcus Thuram managed to make a big impact this time for the positive, for the good, with a very nice header from a corner to effectively kill the game for his club and get a huge win for Gladbach. obviously it's great for them to have Thuram back. Hopefully that can be maybe the catalyst for him learning a lesson, a very big lesson in that regard, because they did obviously miss him whilst he was away. So yeah, obviously that was a really big result for Gladbach. Gets them back in the mix, well and truly in the mix, obviously for top four football now. I think they're a point behind Wolfsburg in fourth place. So they're right in the mix now, which is great for them. And the roles have kind of reversed, because Gladbach not long ago were in like 7th or 8th. And now Dortmund keep on falling, and now obviously find themselves in 7th, 8th place, and just lacking a belief, it seems, at the moment to win games.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we did. I remember in the midweek show we called, obviously after the defeat in Leverkusen, we called for a few changes to the personnel. I mean, we did see Thomas Meunier dropped this week. I mean, obviously a lot of Dortmund fans are very much disappointed with his performance. We saw the youngster Mathieu Mori replace him at fullback. Yeah, again, though, it's not the kind of probably the caliber of player you want to come in. I mean, obviously they've had Schultz as well that can play fullback, but he's not exactly covered himself in glory since he joined the club 18 months ago. He's had a few poor performances before, and they have to turn to these youngsters, you know. And I mean, it's just, I mean, we another disgraceful performance from Berkey, really, I thought, and I'm really starting to be honest, he's a goalkeeper that I've never really fully rated. And I'm really starting to question him big time at the moment now. I mean, he's just, he doesn't seem to deal with the balls in, does he, at all? He's not even that consistent of a shot stopper at times for me. And it's just, that is another position that's very problematic for Dortmund at the moment. But yeah, I mean, turning to Gladbach, I mean, I remember maybe 2 months ago, a month ago, probably only a month ago really now, but we said that Gladbach, they need to make the most of the Champions League season pausing for a while. And they really have done that, you know. I mean, the level of performance has skyrocketed really from a few months ago. They've managed to get like a much stronger side out every week, whereas before that they were rotating way too much for my liking. I mean, obviously, you've seen Thuram come back and get a goal as well now. I mean, they have actually coped pretty well when Thuram's been gone. You know, in fact, I think they won four and drew 1 of his 5 games away. So, I mean, they can't really say they've done badly. But, I mean, you still want your best players in there, don't you? And I mean, but yeah, I mean, Gladbach 5th place now, 5th place, only 1 point and only 4 points off second. And they're probably the team in the best form in that kind of top 6 or 7 at the moment, apart from obviously Bayern. So, yeah, I mean, things are really looking on the up for Gladbach and Marco Rose now. I mean, I remember just before Christmas, we said that Marco Rose at the minute is going to be looking at Dortmund and saying, snapping the hand off to take him. But at the moment, I'm not sure, really, because I think Dortmund have got some serious problems. And for me, if they don't make the top 4, they're going to struggle to keep both Haaland and Sancho in the summer. That's for sure. Yeah, and I think it's very worrying.
Yeah, I agree. I know we were chatting a little bit over the weekend, and I think I said to you, obviously Dortmund obviously quite evidently need a top class coach at the moment to try and tie things back up and push forward. But the question is, do they try and wait until the end of the season, which might be the best time to do it? But if they don't come top 4, how attractive are they going to be to a Marco Rosa or someone else of that caliber? And then if they don't come in the top 4, do they then lose Haaland and Sancho, which makes them an even less attractive proposition? So it's very tricky, because obviously at the moment there aren't that many coaches out of a job. I mean, I saw the other day that Rafa Benitez had just been sacked or had stopped his management with the Chinese side that he was in charge of. If you got someone like Rafa Benitez in on an interim basis for the rest of the season, I know maybe he's not well known for doing any work in Germany, perhaps, but he's someone that could very easily kind of, with his experience, you know, see Dortmund through. He's done that sort of job before. So that would be, you know, an interesting thought perhaps. But yeah, Dortmund at the moment are kind of in a bit of a mire. They're in a bit of a 50-50 area where they try and gamble on a coach now, or maybe try and see it to the end of the season. But either way around, it's going to be very interesting what happens at Signal Iduna Park in the future, well, in the next few months.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's become like a bit of a fashion really in football now that when a manager gets sacked that they kind of go with a young coach to try and see them through and see if it comes good. I mean, obviously in some cases it's come very good. I mean, obviously Hansi Flick, I know he's not that young, but still it came very, very good with him. Like, remember, he was only appointed on an interim basis as well, and I think until the end of December originally, and then they extended it to the end of the season, and obviously he won the treble, and he might go on to win a double this season as well, the way things are going. But I mean, more often than not, it doesn't work, this kind of thing, and I think Dortmund have done this before, to be honest, and it's failed. And I think I totally agree with you, Rory, that for me, they need to appoint someone and quick, because you've got to remember with COVID-19, which doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, it's already harder and harder to get coaches in, because of travel restrictions and things like that. For me, they have to pinpoint someone and say, look, we either on a more experienced coach on an interim basis or someone on a full-time basis, because what's quite clear is that I don't want to blame Edin Terzic, because, I mean, he's very inexperienced and he's a young guy. And, I mean, the job's just far too big for him at the minute. But I feel as though Dortmund as a club is at a crossroads, to be honest, because, as you say, they've got a very, very young squad that need leadership. They really need leadership. And it's the only really experienced player I can think of at that club is Mats Hummels, really. Like, most of the players, Sancho, Bellingham, Reina, Haaland, they're all like 20, 21, and it's just they need someone to go in there and like take control and just kind of, and it might have to be like a Benitez or even an Allegri, to be honest. Okay, they don't play the most beautiful football in the world, those kind of coaches, but they get results. And for me, they have to get in that top four, because it's short of that, I just cannot see how they're going to keep Sancho or Haaland, to be honest. I really can't. Okay, so let's move on to the next game, which was a massive, massive shock. I mean, this was a game between second bottom and second top. So 17th v second, and it ended in a massive shock 3-2 win for beleaguered, or at least previously beleaguered Mainz, winning, who just sold the best player midweek to Mateta, and then all of a sudden they bang in 3 goals. It's just, football's just crazy sometimes, isn't it? You just can't. What did you make of this one, Rory?
An interesting game. I mean, it's certainly one that I had as a banker on my weekly Bundesliga bet, which obviously soon went south. Obviously saw Mainz come back to level things up a couple of times, and then obviously then go and take the lead and win the game was extremely surprising. They do seem to, well, certainly of late, save their best performances against the big boys. Obviously, they got a very respectable draw against Borussia Dortmund a couple of weeks ago, and then they've thrown in this performance. And I think it's truly deserved result as well, because they targeted Leipzig, certainly by the looks of it, from set pieces and from crosses as well. They got a lot of joy from that, I think. And it was Niakate who doesn't get many goals and managed to get himself 2 in one game from obviously being a presence in the area. Obviously, the first one is the first goal for Niakate is a ball whipped in, which Peter Galacci, I think, has dropped, which obviously he's not covered himself in glory there. And Niakate is on hand to knock it home. And then the second goal is a corner thing, which is whipped in and headed back in the cross goal. And Niakate is there again to kind of tap home. And they had lots of chances, to be honest, from those sort of like crosses and set pieces, which RB didn't really deal with very well. The third goal, again, is a bit of a weird one. It's great work from Da Costa down the right to get in a cross down the byline. And then Barrero, might be saying his name wrong, so apologies for the pronunciation, manages to kind of flick it at the near post, and obviously it goes past Galacci to make it 3-2. And obviously Leipzig did press to try and get the equaliser, but apart from the odd good save, I'd say they weren't dramatically under the cosh that much. Obviously, They were desperate for the win, Mainz. But yeah, that's about as big a shock as I could have predicted. It certainly wouldn't have been one there certainly would have been one that I picked for this weekend for sure. So yeah, very well done to Mainz. That's certainly given them a much bigger kind of glimmer of hope. It was only a couple of weeks ago where we were saying that Schalke was more likely to get out of trouble, and lo and behold, Mainz, come out and produce wonderful performance and result like that. So well done to them, and it's obviously from an RB point of view and a Bundesliga title race point of view, has kind of effectively curtailed that, which obviously is very disappointing for general supporters of the Bundesliga, because we don't want to see something just Bayern kind of cruise to it again. But at the moment, it's looking fairly ominous, especially with that result.
Yeah, definitely. But I think in regard to the bottom of the league, it kind of brings it back open a little bit more, because obviously midweek we were saying it looks well and truly over for Mainz and Schalke. And especially looking at the games that they had the top two this weekend as well, respectively. So you were thinking that's going to be another defeat for both of them. But I mean, obviously Mainz, they breathe life into the season. But I think sometimes that can happen. Like, I think there was obviously a few problems behind the scenes with Mateta. Like, he didn't play his last 4 games. Perhaps he was, I mean, I don't know for sure, but maybe he was sulking and trying to get a move away from the club. And maybe that was kind of like affecting performances, because I think aside from the Dortmund result, they seem to be getting worse rather than better in some ways, I would say. But I mean, yeah, I mean, this performance was fantastic, really. I've got to say, though, I mean, Leipzig won't be proud of themselves at all, especially defensively, because I think one of the main before probably the last 4 or 5 games, I was really, really impressed with Leipzig's defense this season. I think for me, the defense have been like the highlight of their season. And also the performances of Peter Galazzi in net as well. I mean, I'll be honest, I was never really a massive fan. I always saw him as a bit of a weakling for Leipzig before the first half of this season. But for me, today's performance was back to the old Peter Galazzi, really. I mean, this was not good enough at the end of the day. I mean, obviously, the first goal, he dropped the easy header, really, right into the path of Mia Karte. Then I think even the third goal was a strange one, really, wasn't it? Because the cross was like so far from the byline. I think he thought it was going to go out.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, like, could he have done a bit better with that third goal? For me, yes, really, yeah, definitely. I mean, it shouldn't have been such an easy finish from that angle, really, as far as I'm concerned. And I mean, he put it in with pretty much ease, Barreiro, didn't he? So, yeah, I mean, this was a very, very disappointing performance. I mean, obviously, Nagelsmann in the week is being linked with Chelsea as well. I don't know if you heard that, Rory, but there were a few talks about Nagelsmann. I mean, I think he's a very professional guy. I don't think he would have let that affect him or the setup at all. But, I mean, I definitely think Nagelsmann is a guy that will fancy himself, and he's got the character to manage at the very, very top of the game, And I think, obviously, with the way things are going for Frank Lampard at Chelsea, I wouldn't be surprised to see a guy like Nagelsmann, maybe not this season, but perhaps next season in the Chelsea hot seat, to be honest with you. I really can see that. So, yeah, maybe that's another interesting development on that front. Okay, so let's move on to the third feature game of the weekend, which was, for me, probably the performance of the weekend, really. I mean, Frankfurt were just red hot in this game, weren't they? Some of the goals. And, I mean, specifically Filip Kostic. I mean, what a game he had. I mean, that goal, I think it was the third goal. It was just an absolute rocket, wasn't it? I mean, we praised Ortega a lot. We praised him a lot, and rightly so this season. But, I mean, there's not much he could have done in this game, is there, Rory?
No, unfortunately not. I think probably at the start of the season when Armenia got promoted, they maybe thought that they would have had a few more of these sort of days where they saw goals going past them at will. And I think it was just one of those days where maybe there was the odd mistake, I think, certainly for the first goal, where the clearance hits their defender and then obviously falls to Silva for 1-0, which is finished a good finish anyway. There's not an awful lot they could have done with some of the goals. Obviously, Kostic's goal is an absolute banger. Obviously, a great hit. The second Silva goal was a really nice bit of play, and then he meets it clean on the volley. Like, obviously, there's nothing much Ortega would have done with that. So, yeah, I mean, Frankfurt were just hot hot on fire, and obviously Kamada was running the show. He then set up Jovic, who obviously came off the bench to get himself another goal. So, I mean, they seem to be rotating their team quite well week on week as well. Frankfurt, it seems like a hard team to get into because I think Kamada was on the bench the other week. He's obviously had a bit more of a starring role this week. Obviously, Jovic can't even get into the starting 11 at the moment, and he's got 3 goals on his return. So I think he'll soon make a more significant contribution in terms of starting games soon. I think they just want to get him up to speed, but the fact that he's scoring goals already is a fantastic sign for them. And obviously, as we kind of see teams peak and trough throughout the season, as is football and kind of form, I don't think there's any better team at the moment than Frankfurt. Obviously, we've seen teams like Freiburg and obviously Gladbach now kind of hitting a bit of form, but Frankfurt for me look really dangerous the way they're going forward. Like we mentioned, Kostic earlier on this season wasn't really hitting his straps, but I mean, if he's now playing up to his sort of level again, that's a huge bonus for them. So it's looking good for Frankfurt in terms of obviously their challenge for they're in 6th as we speak. They're 2 points as well now off 4th. 2 points off 3rd as well, technically speaking. So I mean, they can achieve anything they want to if they keep this form of going for a good a couple of months. They'll be really well positioned. From a Bielefeld point of view, I think we just said, there's not much you can do if you sometimes find yourself playing a team that just have better quality than you, and for all the effort that you can put in, sometimes it just isn't enough. So they'll just have to take that one on the chin, and obviously they're probably happy that obviously Cologne weren't able to collect points themselves, so they stay in that much craved 15th place for now. So yeah, not a huge disaster for Bielefeld. They can just move on and concentrate on next week.
Yeah, for me, it was more of a case of they just ran into a team that were red hot today. I mean, obviously before that, they kept 3 straight clean sheets and 4 clean sheets in 5. So, I mean, they were, especially defensively, they were on fire, really. I mean, nobody could penetrate that defense. But I mean, for me, Frankfurt are possibly the most on-form side in the whole league at the minute in terms of the level of performance. I mean, they just create bags of chances every game, and they've got, like, as you've already mentioned, I mean, Silva is really, really hitting his straps now. He's starting to find the net on a very, very regular basis, after perhaps not doing quite as well as what people would have thought in maybe the first 7 or 8 games. But the last 10 games or so, he's really getting a lot of goals. And I mean, I really like, obviously, Kamada, I've mentioned him a lot. I've been really impressed with him all season, really. And I think this was one of his best games as well. The likes of Amin Younes, I really like him as well. Yeah, he's another young player that's come from nowhere, really. I mean, I didn't even know about him before this season, to be honest. And I've been really impressed with him. And then even at the back, they've got quality. I mean, Eric Durm, obviously, he started his career at Dortmund as well. And I think he played under the Klopp teams too. So he's got experience at wing back. Kevin Trapp, another. I mean, we mentioned early in the season, I don't think he was really on his best form, but we're really starting to see him come good now. And he's got the leadership, the experience of his time at Paris Saint-Germain as well. And I mean, they've got, I would say, apart from centre half, they've got like real top quality players all over the pitch. Sau is another one. Ibrahima Sau is an excellent holding midfielder. For me, this is a side that there's no reason to believe they can't get top 4, to be honest, especially with the signing of Jovic. I mean, that is just the push forward you need to really get you over the line, And I mean, if there is a time when Silva isn't scoring or isn't performing, and they can change the formation too, they can go 2 out and out strikers up top.
Yeah.
During the game as well. So, I mean, it's just things are going really well for them at the minute. Well, do you fancy them for top 4, Rory? Do you think they can do it?
Presently, the way that other teams are playing and the way they're playing, I'd say that I'm confident that they will. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got to remember, Bundesliga, it's only a short season, really. We only have another 16 games to go, so it's not like they have to sustain it for that long, you know. I mean, realistically, for me, if they can get another like 8-9 wins from those 16 games, they could get in there, you know. Yeah. Maybe 10 at the very, very most they'll probably need, I would say. Yeah. Okay. So let's move on to the final Feature 4 game, and I think this is one both of us looked at this game and we thought, oh, this is probably going to be like the game to miss of the weekend, really. But I mean, it was anything but, really, wasn't it? I mean, it was a very, very eventful game, starting off with exchanging penalties. Obviously, I mean, we mentioned it's quite ironic, really, because after Piatek missed a penalty in midweek, we said that Cunha needed to step up this time. And I mean, it was an even worse penalty from him, wasn't it? And I mean, it was just, and then obviously that would have made it 1-1. But then I think for me, this was probably Bittencourt's best game in a long time as well for Werder Bremen. I mean, this was much more the Bittencourt that we were seeing perhaps earlier in the season and at the back end of last season as well. I thought this was a brilliant performance. He got the goal with a belting strike, really. Rory, what did you make of this match as such?
Yeah, I agree, actually. I think Bittencourt had a really good game, his best game for a long while. As we've mentioned before with Werder, if he ticks, Werder tick, basically. So he played a really vital part in their game and in their win. I think it's the third goal which he scores. The pass to him is exceptional as well. I think it's Egglestein who plays that in. So that's a really nice bit of football, actually. So a bit of a mix of, obviously, we've seen Werder sometimes looking more dangerous through set play. Obviously, the danger of top rack, which he obviously scored in this game as well. But it's nice to see them play some really fluid football as well, which was certainly the case for their third goal. It's a bit obviously the opening exchange of penalties is a key part of the game. All of a sudden, Hertha have got a bit of a problem with penalty takers, as we kind of goaded them into putting Cunha on penalties. He then obviously has his effort saved. So that all of a sudden you're kind of thinking, well, you don't want penalties to become an issue, because obviously they're there as golden opportunities to get yourself a goal. So that's a bit of a worry. And then from there on in, I think it felt fairly inevitable. Obviously they got a goal back through Cordoba. There's a good header as well, actually, just on half time, I think it was. But Werder then pushed and, were able to get their rewards in the second half, and even a goal for Josh Sargent, which again was a really good hit, actually, clean hit from distance to make it 4-1 after kind of battling it out with Guendouzi in the middle of the park for possession. So it all came together for Werder and it ticked. So perfectly timed win, which sees them stay above Hertha in the table, crucially. Hertha are kind of sitting, very, very close to, the danger end of the table. And as you've already said earlier on the show, Mark, the manager has suffered as a result. And I can't really say I'm shocked the way that they've been playing lately. They can't buy a win at home other than beating Schalke. Maybe 3 weeks ago it was now. So I mean, they've certainly and again, you've certainly mentioned it, Mark. They certainly have a squad that is capable of more than 15th or joint 16th. Well, sorry, joint 15th rather, in the table, being on the same points as Armenia. They wouldn't have been satisfied with that at all, as a Hertha Berlin fan, for sure. So I think it's about right to get rid and try and refresh the squads, get some new thinking in there, maybe try and play a different way, because they certainly have the players capable of minimum mid-table, you'd say, really. But a really important win for Werder as well, because that kind of reconnects them with kind of the middle of, well, it reconnects them with a bit of safety, actually. But obviously things aren't looking so good from Hertha's point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite ironic as well because in the first game of the season, this ended in a 4-1 win for Hertha in Werder. So it proves that the Bundesliga can just be crazy sometimes, can't it? Like teams trading 4-1 away wins at different parts of the season. But yeah, I mean, for me, this was this match. It proved that Werder Bremen, they can play some really entertaining football when they want to. I mean, we've probably only seen it 3 or 4 times before that, and I would say the one that really stands out in mind was when they played Bayern Munich away and they got the draw. Like, they were fantastic that day, and for me, this was probably on par with that level of performance, really. And I think, as you say, I mean, Toprak, I remember I mentioned him in the preview that he could be like one of the dark horses for like a real top signing from Dortmund. He went under the radar. I think they got him for like 3 or 4 million euros. So it was a real bargain. And I mean, he's really starting to show some quality. Like, when you've got a team that don't score that many goals, but you've got a centre half that can come in with like 5, 6 goals a season, big goals as well, that win you points. I mean, that's important, you know. And I think his leadership at the back as well is really quality. He's I think he's around 30, 31 now, and he's played at obviously Dortmund, some big clubs in Turkey as well, I think. So yeah, I mean, he is a real top player. But I think, Josh Sargent is a player for me that he has a lot more potential than what his statistics show. Do you understand? So it's like he's one of those players that if you look at his stats, you think, nah, I'm not having him at all, you know. But for me, the performances are better than his statistics. And I think he's still a young guy, the American. And I think if he can start finishing a little bit more, he could be a real decent player in the Bundesliga. I think he is suited to Bundesliga football. And I think I would like to see him start finding the net a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, this bodes well for Werder. I mean, I think overall they're having a decent season, to be honest with you. I think obviously like 21 points now from 18 games, so they're comfortably over a point a game average. That's going to keep them in around like 11th, 12th by the end of the season. I think after what went on last year and the financial problems at the club, they'd be more than happy with that. Absolutely. As for Hertha, on the other hand, it's just not good enough at all as far as I'm concerned. It's just, I mean, they've got a team that should be, on paper, I would say they're arguably like 6th, 7th, to be honest, on paper. They should be that high. But, I mean, they're just playing. I would almost go as far to saying, do some of these big money signings really want to play for Hertha Berlin? I would go that far, to be honest. I'm going to say, like, were they using Hertha as like a stepping stone? Because it seems as though in possession they're quite nice at times, and like even like Guendouzi can play some good football, Toussaint. But I mean, there's no like effort when other teams have got the ball at all, is there? And they let the heads drop so easily. I mean, we've seen in both of these home batterings, really, by Hoffenheim and Werder Bremen, that as soon as like the heads drop, they just get battered, really, you know. And as soon as like they miss the penalty, it's game over, and it's just. When you get him, I mean, some of these guys in Hertha Berlin, they're going to be they're going to be on like 70, 80 or even 100 grand a week, I would imagine, some of them. And I think Hertha Berlin have really, really invested a lot of money this year, and the fans and everybody should be expecting a lot better from those players. And I hope they get a tough coach in who's going to really say, hey, like, you got to work if you want to get that kind of money, really, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the end of our feature 4 this week. So yeah, let's go over the rest of the games. Okay, so let's start off. There were some other games along with that as well. So let's start with a nice 2-1 win for Augsburg over Union. Like, the thing that stuck out for me was Niederlechner. Obviously, he got 13 goals last year, and he was one of the kind of unsung heroes of the season. This year, it's not been anywhere near as easy for him. But I mean, that first goal was really well taken, Rory. It was,
Yeah, I mean, we kind of pointed him out last week, actually, or in midweek. It's all kind of merging together time these days. For his perhaps lack of clinicality in the game against Bayern. He certainly had a really good chance at the end to perhaps grab an equaliser for Augsburg. So he'll have been absolutely buzzing to have got that kind of chip off his back and to have basically got his season properly underway now in what was another very timely win for Augsburg. I think certain teams in the Bundesliga just have this this ability to just win when they need to, which obviously ultimately keeps them in mid-table. And that was another very well-timed win for Augsburg. it's from a Union point of view, they've just started to run out of steam a little bit. And maybe just a few things have just gone against them lately. And as a result, they've dropped out of the kind of top 4, 5, 6, and now they're down in 8th at the moment. But that's far from a disgrace at all. It's just sometimes it's hard to keep that sort of momentum up. And they just, they came unstuck this weekend. There's no disgrace by any stretch of the imagination. I'm sure they'll come bouncing back to hopefully kind of still challenge, because they're still in the mix for a top 6, and that would very much cap off a tremendous season for them.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't win every one of these games. Eventually, you're going to lose one of them. And I mean, some of the results they've served up this year, and I think obviously, yeah, for Augsburg, it's a big win, because obviously going to Dortmund away next week, I mean, obviously it's never easy going there. And if you lose that, all of a sudden you're on a run of like 4 or 5 defeats in a row. So, yeah, I mean, this was a big win, and it was a deserved win, to be honest, as well. It was, yeah. Okay, and moving on to a big game for the top 4. I mean, 4th place Wolfsburg now, and they're actually, this is obviously Leverkusen in 3rd as well, so there's not much between those sides. For me, this was a game where Leverkusen, again, they're just not taking the chances at the minute. I mean, they've had so many chances in that first half, so many chances, and then they get hit with the sucker punch, really. This was one of Wolfsburg's first chances of the game, really, to go 1-0 ahead. And I just think things just aren't going for Leverkusen, Rory, at the minute, are they?
No, again, much like Leipzig or Dortmund or anyone like this, even Gladbach earlier on in the season, they just seem to get themselves going, and then they get hit, and then they have a bad result. And so after their midweek win against Dortmund, I fully expected them to kick on again and do like a similar run to what they did at the start of the season in terms of not being beaten. So yeah, it is a case of obviously missed chances in this game. Certainly, I think they started the game pretty well from what I've seen, and then obviously they did get a bit of a sucker punch in the end. But Wolfsburg are a team. Again, at the start of the season, we really gave them a bit of flack, and because we expected more from them, because we know how much they can produce, and since that point, they just very slowly got themselves underway, built confidence. Obviously, are now been led from the front by a really capable striker in the shape of Weghorst, and players around him now are really starting to come to the fore. So. Huge win for them. Didn't have to be pretty, just had to be 3 points. And now, obviously, as a result of other results, they're now in the top 4, joint on points with Leverkusen, who they obviously beat. And now just, 3 points off second place. And they're now really enjoying a really good season. So long may it continue for Wolfsburg, because, again, it's always good to see different teams inside the top 4. Obviously, in theory, at the moment, if you're looking on form, you'd probably say a top 4 of Bayern, RB, Wolfsburg and Frankfurt, because it's obviously those 2 teams I've just mentioned are obviously in really good form. So we'll see where it all lands at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think one thing that Wolfsburg have got that perhaps some of the other teams that are doing well haven't got is they've got some real steel in there as well. I mean, we saw it early season when their attack was really not firing, but they didn't lose many games. And I mean, as it happens, the only games they've lost all season were away at Dortmund and away at Bayern. They're the only games they've lost all season. I mean, for me, they've got a really good goalkeeper in Castells. For me, he's probably one of the better goalkeepers in the Bundesliga. I'm a big fan of him. I also like the centre-half partnership of Lacroix, the Frenchman, and also Brooks is he's not the most orthodox. He kind of looks more like an MMA fighter or something, doesn't he, really? But, I mean, he's a real leader in that side. And he's another one a bit like Toprak, who can knock a few goals in as well. And I think this was a really, really good defensive performance from them. A really, really outstanding performance defensively, particularly from Wolfsburg. Okay, so let's move on to the Baden-Württemberg derby between Freiburg and Stuttgart. Now, I think this was a game that followed a similar pattern for how things are going at the minute for Stuttgart. I mean, they had by far the more chances in the game. Obviously, they took the lead through the prolific Silas, who seems to get a lot of goals these days, doesn't he? I mean, obviously the VAR looked to rule it off, but then they allowed it. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, they have another couple of chances, and obviously Gonzalez misses the pen. I mean, getting on to Gonzalez's penalty, I mean, it was a horror show, that, wasn't it? I mean, he just kind of, I don't know what he's doing. I think he gets caught in two minds and he doesn't know what to do. And he ends up basically just saying, okay, goalkeeper, I'll pass it back to you, you know, because that's what happened in the end. It was a horror show. But then even in the second half, I mean, it's just chance after chance, really, for Stuttgart, but they just can't get the leveler. And I think for me, this probably wasn't Freiburg's best performance, but it's still a big win because it gets them, you know, they're on to like, I think that's 6 wins in 8 for them now or something. It's like they're really, really like, this has been a prolonged period of form for Freiburg. I mean, both goals were a little bit lucky, to be honest. They were both deflected goals. Obviously, Demirovic, who's starting to become quite prolific as well, getting the equaliser. And then, obviously a similar winner, which could easily have been prevented really by Stuttgart, but it's just not happening for them at the minute. Rory, are you starting to get a little bit worried that I mean, I know you kind of root for Stuttgart a lot. Are you getting a bit worried that it's falling apart for them at the minute?
So in terms of results, it is a little bit, which I'm sure the coach Pellegrino Matarazzo will not be happy about because some of the performances haven't maybe merited the results that have come. One thing that I think Stuttgart do have on side is obviously the fact that you were mentioning they could have scored X amount of goals anyway. Obviously, the missed penalty ends up, costing Stuttgart maybe a point in the end. But I think the very fact that they are capable of scoring pretty much at any moment in time in a game gives them that edge over some of the rest of the Bundesliga teams that are lurking below them. I think at the very worst, they might come maybe 12th or 13th. I don't expect them to drop much further than that. But hopefully they can reset themselves a bit, maybe shore up defensively somewhat, and then the goals will come because the way that they play football is really, really exciting to watch and is really positive. So hopefully, the soft spot that I have for Stuttgart will continue, and that they'll continue to impress as we go on to the latter half of the season.
Yeah, definitely. I think I would agree. I think there's not really much going wrong performance-wise, and they're still creating bags of chances. But I think, defensively is where the problems are. Really, they are making mistakes in defence, definitely at the moment. We saw it midweek against Bielefeld as well, when they probably had the more chances and ended up losing 3-0. And I think today's game was similar. I mean, they had at least, 3-4 golden chances, including the penalty, to score more goals in this game today. And I just think that's what's changed, really. I mean, they're not taking the chances and they're making a few errors at the back, which is leading to some of these defeats and draws at the moment. Okay, so let's move on to the Sunday games, both very, very one-sided matches. And I mean, Schalke is just, it looks done for them, really, doesn't it? Let's be honest. I think there's no real optimism really there for them at the minute. I mean, this was like, again, I didn't think this was a vintage Bayern performance, but it was as comfortable an away win as you're going to get, Rory, really.
Yeah, I think so. Didn't have an awful lot of hope for Schalke at the start of the game, and obviously the result is a comfortable away win for Bayern. Lewandowski, Muller, I thought were good. Obviously good for them both to get goals. So, a comfortable win for Bayern, looking very strong now. I think now the fact that they've got a 7-point lead at the top of the table is obviously, in terms of the title race, is looking quite ominous. It's probably a bad thing for teams that are involved in the Champions League as well, because it probably means that they can go hard at that as well. Because, like we said, I don't think we've even seen Bayern out of third gear, maybe. So that's quite scary in itself. So I think, obviously completely deserved winners today. So they are, I think, we'll start to see a bit more from them in the second half of the season, and I think they could do a double again. We'll have to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously the weekend's action finishing with a very, very comfortable win for Hoffenheim. Back-to-back 3-0 wins for them. Things are really starting to turn around for them. Obviously, starting with the fact that Kramaric just started finding the back of the net again. And I think the other big point is that Baumgartner, their young hero really from the youth system there, is really starting to find his early season form as well. And I mean, obviously, he got the second goal today with another good performance from him, backing up an excellent performance midweek against Hertha Berlin. And so, Rory, the main thing I want to ask about this one, do you think it was the right decision for the Hoffenheim hierarchy to keep on to Sebastian Hoeneß?
At present, I'd have to say yes, because of the last two results. So fair play to them for holding fire for now, because obviously two big 3-0 wins they've pushed them into 11th place, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, what was all the fuss about? So yeah, it's amazing how quickly your fortunes can turn around in football. So yeah, very timely that Kramaric has got some goals, obviously 2 penalties today, but still got to put them away at the end of the day. Baumgartner looks a hell of a player, certainly coming into his own again in terms of form, so that's encouraging for them. Bad day at the office for Cologne, obviously still sitting in the relegation playoff place. Obviously the one saving grace for them is that they're only a win away from jumping outside the place, so still lots of mileage in this one, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So that brings an end to our week 18 review, so let's quickly go on to Petre and Pundit's predict with Rory.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll skim through nice and quickly as per. So next weekend, we have Friday night game, I believe it is, on the 29th. Let's double check. Yeah, Friday night football returns, and we've got VfB Stuttgart hosting Mainz. So I think there will be a 2-1 win for Stuttgart. Mark, what do you think about this one?
It's a hard one to tip, this one, but I'm going to go for 2-1 Stuttgart as well.
Very good. Moving on to the Saturday afternoon games, Dortmund host Augsburg, and I think they'll get revenge from their earlier shock result in the reverse fixture. I think they'll win 2-1 just.
Yeah, I've gone for 2-0 to Dortmund. I just think they've got to win eventually.
Very good. And then on to Bayern Munich hosting Hoffenheim. Obviously, the reverse game was a 4-1 win for Hoffenheim. So I think it'll be 3-2 to Bayern Munich.
Yeah, I've gone for 2-1 to Bayern. Yeah.
Very good. Then Frankfurt, the form team of the Bundesliga, host Hertha Berlin. I can't see anything but a Frankfurt win, so I'm saying 3-0.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a good one for the coupon, really, isn't it? I've gone for 2-0, but it should be very comfortable for Frankfurt.
Yeah, and another one that it looks like a good game. Union host Gladbach. I'm backing Gladbach just based on current form. I'm saying 3-1.
Yeah, we've seen Union do really well against the big teams at home, but I'm going to go for Gladbach 2-1. I just think they're really looking good at the minute.
Moving on to Werder Bremen hosting Schalke, and I think it'll be 2-2. I'm going with a draw. Ultimately, Schalke need at least a point, so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I've gone 2-1 to Werder. I just think they're starting to look a bit better at the minute.
Yeah, and then we've got Saturday evening football, which is a very tasty looking game between RB and Leverkusen, both dipping in terms of form, and I'm going to say RB 2-1 just because they have to win.
Yeah, I've gone for 1-1 just because I just don't think either of these teams are anywhere near the best at the minute.
Moving on to Sunday, then Sunday afternoon, we've got Cologne hosting Arminia Bielefeld. That is, of course, a huge game at the bottom of the table. I think it will be a tetchy 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I'm also going for 1-1, but it could surprise us, this game. You never know with the Bundesliga.
Indeed, the last game of the weekend is Wolfsburg hosting Freiburg. Does also look like a tasty game, that one. And I think Wolfsburg's fine season will continue with a 2-1 win.
Yeah, I've also gone for 2-1. I just think Wolfsburg are really, really hard to get anything against at the minute. So 2-1 Wolfsburg.
Perfect. Just to bring you up to date with scores on the doors between myself and Mark, we have actually drawn the last 2 weeks worth of Bundesliga prediction, so it remains at 8-5 to me. So still plenty to do for Mark, but still we can quite easily mount a comeback, I am sure. So that leads us on very nicely to tie up with our hero and zero of the week. So we'll just quickly spin through that. And the hero of the week that we have chosen is going to be Nico Elvedi for obviously his performance this weekend in Gladbach's win over Dortmund. A huge win, 2 goals for himself, and he also got one in a crucial game in midweek. So 3 goals in recent history for Elvedi. So Nico Elvedi, very well done. You're the hero of the week. And then Mark, do you want to tell us about the zero?
Yeah, so for the zero, I was going to give it to Stuttgart striker Gonzalez for his penalty, but because obviously he's had such a good season this year overall, and also Berkey as well had a bit of a nightmare this week. But yeah, I think the news today breaking, I think the only zero can be Bruno Labbadia from Hertha Berlin. He's just not really done it in his 9 months at the club, has he? Obviously, he had a good start when he first went in, taking them from 13th to 10th. The back end of last season, but this season has been not even close to good enough at times. Particularly the home form has just been a catastrophe, really, for most of his reign. So we'll have to see who Hertha Berlin get through the door next.
Indeed. So that brings a close to the hero and zero. If you disagree with our choices, please do comment below in the YouTube comment section. Let us know who you reckon did well or who had a stinker. And that brings the show very neatly to an end. So as always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you enjoy the show, please let your friends know, spread the word, get yourself subscribing, get those numbers for OTB on the up. That would be great. So over to Mark to close up as always.
Absolutely. So remember, if you want to check out our Twitter at @OverTheBarFB, we've got everything related to football on there. Remember to check out the League One show as well. They usually do a live stream nowadays. So yeah, particularly if you want to ask any questions while they're on air, then please check into that. I don't know the exact date of the next one, but just look out. You'll get updates on your, if you subscribe to our channel, you can get regular updates with regard to that. And if you want to check out the main website, you can see the otbfootball.net, which is the main centerpiece of the site, where you can see anything football or YouTube related. So it's been a great week. The second half of the season continues, and Bayern are leading the way. So yeah, let's see what next week brings us. So it's bye-bye from me.
See you next week.